And welcome to the Tuesday, October 21st Historic Commission meeting. Yes, it's 5 p.m. Call the meeting to order. Brian, will you do roll call, please?
Griffa?
Here.
Kramers?
Here.
Klingeman?
Here.
Conrad?
Here.
Goff? Here. Terrell? Absent. Hanson? 6 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 3, comments from the public. Do we have any comments?
We do not.
Thank you. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented?
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I will second, yeah.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, so moved. New business, item number 5, review certificate of appropriateness 2025-08, 827 East Court Street. Mitchell, do you want to go first?
Yeah, of course. So the case we have here is a removal of an existing structure for a replacement structure. A 2-car garage is being, or planned to be, taken down and replaced with a 3-car garage of similar appearance and design and infrastructure. And along with that, the fence, which you can see in the lower left photo of the array of 6 exterior images, that fence is going to be taken out and replaced with not an iron fence, but a look-alike aluminum fencing that will improve line of sight to the property, so you can see even more of its historic goodness. The garage itself is, of course, going to be taken down completely and replaced with brickwork that is similar to the home itself, more similar to the home itself. The 2 structures right now are fairly similar in their brick color and style, but a great deal of planning and effort has gone into making the new structure appear very similar to the current house, and overall not impacting the personality of the property or its contribution to the neighborhood. Let's see, they're going to be adding a dormer up on the top roof. That's probably going to be a noticeable alteration, but not anything too significant. And in fact, it will match dormers that exist on the house itself. And I did some preliminary research to try and figure out if the current 2-car garage structure is at all original to the property. And what we found out is that the original garage was built in 1915 to a dimension or a square footage of around 360 square feet, which is about 150 feet less than the structure that we see today, the 2-car garage. So it's very, very unlikely that this structure is original. And thinking about it more over the last week or so, this is a 2-car garage, and a 2-car garage in 1915 would have been very strange. Owning 2 automobiles at the same time feels about as likely as owning 2 desktop computers in 1985. Possible, but very unlikely. So my review of that finds that it's extremely unlikely that the structure currently seen is original as it is. So I personally don't have any issue based on my review with approving this certificate, but I will offer the floor to my fellow reviewer, Conrad.
All right, yeah, I guess we'll start with the fence, which is obviously, it's hard to tell in these photos, it is deteriorated. And so the style of fence being replaced with is something that we have approved repeatedly, even in my short tenure here. I agree with Mitch, the brick is different enough on the garage from the house to suggest it was not built at the same time. The garage itself from the street is not terribly prominent at this time. So it's not something that, in a sense, people are necessarily going to not see when it's, or notice that it's gone. The new garage is obviously 3 cars. The doors themselves are taller, so those are 10-foot doors, I believe. And that dormer obviously matches. I'm guessing it's also helps to break up the big face of the structure. I suppose I've not been on the commission long enough to ever have seen a project where we are demolishing something existing and putting up something new. So I don't have a comment on the appropriateness of that. But I do agree they seem to have taken great pains in trying to match the architectural style.
Any other questions?
I have a question that may seem very stupid and certainly seems that way now, but when I read this application, at first I couldn't figure out what was going on because unless I'm mistaken, this doesn't ever actually say they're going to demolish the garage, does it? Is that anywhere in here? And it's fine, I don't have a problem with the application, but in future, when there's going to be demolition, I think it should say that. Because I couldn't figure out what was going on here. I thought they were going to
I thought that they were just adding
So did I.
square footage.
So did I.
And, you know, looking at our certificate right here, they selected the correct selection, new construction or addition. But one thing we don't have in new construction or addition as a subcategory is removal. Because obviously the category is new construction, but many a time, particularly with historic properties, if you're adding something or building something new, you're taking something old away.
Which would be fine.
Yeah.
But I would suggest that if we have an application that doesn't actually specify what they're doing, that we ask them to include it in it. And not with this one, but for future ones. I think if they're going to remove something or demolish something, it should actually say that.
Yeah, we have that, I mean, it is under all of the other items, except for the new construction, new building, which I don't believe that a garage would actually classify as an accessory? Or would that fall under that? So to explain that, we have a new certificate of appropriateness to our listeners, and so we're working through the process of using this new form to see if there are still some glitches that may have come up. And so I don't know, Brian, if you have an answer to this at all, is that, would a garage be considered because it's not attached to the house, would it then be considered an accessory?
It is. This is one of those cases where the project scope would fall under a few different categories here, and that would include accessory structure as well. So the application could have been submitted in a way that would have indicated that there was a new accessory structure, namely a detached garage, to be constructed on the property. This is not typical. The commission doesn't review a lot of new buildings in the historic district. In my time with the commission, that's been fairly limited. And this is one of those instances where, like I said, it is new construction as well as modification to an existing accessory structure, demolition, and construction of a new accessory structure in its place.
Okay. All right. Can we have if there's no other questions?
I just want to say that in my day job, sometimes I'm doing applications like this, and many places would require me to have 2 separate applications, one for the removal and one for the rebuild, because it might be possible that one would be okay and one wouldn't be okay. I guess I'll just throw that out there also.
Yeah.
Because, we're lumping 2 basically different
Two projects,
things,
yeah.
Even though it's one project, into one application.
2 phases.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just throw that out there
That makes a
also.
lot of sense, because, for example, if this a 2-car garage, as Mitch explained, probably isn't realistic for the time frame when it was built, but if you had a carriage house or something and you're trying to demolish it and it was a historic structure, then that would present a whole different issue. So, yeah, either amending this form or better probably having two applications when there's a demolition involved that has to be separately assessed might be the best plan.
What would your department do? Or what would your recommendation be moving forward?
Well, I think we'd want to give that some thought. As in all cases, it's always a balance, between what we ask folks to do in order to move forward. Maybe it's a simple enough thing to have them complete a separate application, but we have had a number of projects over the years go through the commission that included separate elements, as in this case, a new garage and a replacement fence. We've had other projects that involved, several windows being replaced and also a porch replacement or, several windows and a new fence. And in those cases, we have traditionally allowed and facilitated project applications, using a single form. And even in those cases, the Historic Commission isn't limited to taking action on all aspects or all elements of a project proposal in the same manner. So if I can switch to the screen, or if Mackenzie can maybe assist me in switching to the screen that contains the suggested motions, the commission could, if it so chose to do so, if it wanted to take different actions on different aspects or elements of the request, you could condition your approval upon certain modifications. You could specify in your motion that the proposed, say in this case, with the COA before us now, you could specify that the proposed, garage removal and reconstruction project meets the criteria, and, specify that the approval being granted is for that aspect or element, and then make a second motion to either conditionally approve or deny some other element or aspect of the project. But if you feel that it's necessary for folks to complete two separate forms in order to more clearly differentiate or distinguish between those elements of a project that they wish to complete, we can certainly do that. But like I said, it's always that balancing act, and regardless of what folks do, whether it's one application or multiple, you always retain that ability to structure your approval based upon what the commission desires to do in terms of either approving with conditions or denying.
I think I would prefer not to add additional steps to somebody that's already trying to comply with our process when, like he said, we can do the whole scope of everything, and if we don't like part of it, we can get rid of that part of it or deny that part of it or whatever, and they're already going to have to do those same multiple steps for a demo permit and then the build permit of once they get into all of the tear down and construction outside of that. So I'd prefer not to add more steps when it already covers the full scope if we want to. I do think there could be a checkbox or something added on there like demo or something.
Well, the other thing too, to go along with that, it's just that, we were looking for ease of us being able to read and understand what it was that the project was about. And just having that accessory structure filled in would have then given me, now I understand that we're taking down and building. So I agree with you that, I don't want to have to add another step and more paperwork for
I see what you're saying, the
but
accessory structure, and then
exactly,
I could
that
have
it would be
marked the
yes.
removal and then
Yeah.
the new building.
Even, because other has removal, so if they had marked, other removal
Yeah.
demolition of existing structure, that would have been
Yep.
fine as well. But, you know,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's a point of clarity on our part
part.
that can likely be solved by a slight amendment to the certificate form if we were to pursue that. But I will note that we do have an additional process to confirm how what's actually happening, and that's the in-person review. So both myself and Jake went out there, and so we got the information that we needed and presented it here. So to provide that clarity in that way.
Yeah.
So you know, between those two things, I wonder if, you know, it's certainly in my mind, it's certainly fine enough in this case, and I think with the process as it currently stands, it's probably fine enough in every case between those two things.
I read the part of it. I mean, I kind of assumed, I didn't assume you would be able to move that structure very easily, and it was gonna be 2 feet towards the house and 2 feet towards the street. So I was assuming if the building's gonna be placed 2 feet and 2 feet differently, that it was probably not gonna be the same building. And then I just have the luxury of also working for the city, so my office got called, and I specifically of, is that original, isn't it? And whatever, so, yeah.
So when I read it, I wasn't sure what they were doing. It looked to me at first that they were expanding the garage and turning it into a separate building, but I couldn't figure out how you could do that with the description the way it was. So I ended up spending quite a bit of time trying to figure out what they were really doing. So it would be helpful, I think, to change the form slightly, because if you're not one of the people that's going to see the property and actually talking about it, you may not know. And also, I think while it's true that we can, and certainly, and I don't think it's a problem for this case, we can just amend what we're saying when we do our motion. But I do think in future cases, we ought to have a written record of what is actually going on, partly to save time when we're reviewing it, but also for future, when somebody looks back at it, in case we're not entirely complete in how we do our suggested motion at the end. So I really don't think it would be asking that much to amend the form slightly so that all the information is there in
Yeah.
writing.
I personally don't think, I do not think we need to change the form. I just think that when I did for the tax credit, I used the same form even though different jobs were being done. I just had to fill in the different sections in which it was taken. And we have 2 sections here that are already in place that the first part of the project could have been placed.
Would it
Yeah,
be
I would-
worthwhile to pick up this discussion as a separate item, as a new business?
We can.
Otherwise, I think,
Yeah.
I want to thank the commission for the discussion. This is very useful and helpful to staff, because we are, you know, on a daily, weekly basis charged with assisting folks as the applicants, you know, in this case, in putting together the information that they need in order to make a request of the commission. And so, you know, hearing the comments that you've made tonight, understanding kind of the level of clarity that you desire to have with the application materials is, again, very useful to us. And also, I would expect going to be very useful to future applicants, so that we can provide a degree of coaching, if you will, to those folks when it comes time to preparing and submitting application materials to position their projects for review by the commission. So, thank you.
I guess the question is, are there going to be 2 motions? Or are we comfortable with just one motion? Or based on what we have here, the suggested motions here? Because I don't believe that we're going to, my feel is that we're not going to make any changes.
Correct.
Yes.
I would assume, yeah, that we're all on board with everything that's
Yeah.
been submitted.
No, I think we should clarify, as Brian suggested in our motion, as part of the motion that we understand there's going to be demolition of the garage, and that with that, even, well, I don't know how we'll want to put it, but that should be part of the motion, that with our understanding of the the information that we've gained, that it includes demolition of the old garage building, that we move to go ahead and approve it. That's what I would think. Otherwise, it's nowhere in this case that that's happening. And I like to have records. I'm a lawyer, I can't help it. What do you guys think? Obviously, nobody here is
So
in
if we
support
were
of
to
that, it
make
looks
a
like.
motion to approve the project as stated, including demolition of existing structure and construction of a new garage, fence, and driveway,
Yes, I think that would be fine.
I would move to make such a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I didn't write down what it was that you said, but the motion that has been placed before us, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you. All right. Moving on to old business. Item number 1, update on the City of Janesville zoning and subdivision code rewrite. Brian, do you have any riveting updates for us?
No, nothing riveting, unfortunately. And obviously, we didn't have new material to distribute to you for this week's meeting, but I would expect, may or may not be at your next meeting in November, but very soon we will have the next draft materials for the code rewrite to be distributed to you, and I would expect that that'll include the ordinance sections on creation of a historic district, as well as the process for review of a certificate of appropriateness. So those will be very important to have your input and feedback on, as they're obviously very essential to the work that we do as a commission. So we will present that to you just as soon as they're available, and would expect to do that as early as your next meeting. It'll be provided to you for review in advance of the next meeting, but we'll have an opportunity to discuss it at your next meeting.
Right, thank you. Old business, item number 2, our continued discussion on outreach to new property owners in the historic overlay district. Brian?
Similarly, just a quick update on this. We are working on a couple different things related to outreach, I suppose not only to new property owners, but public outreach in general on the topic of historic preservation, which is of course the Commission's primary mission. We are working on adding some detail to the script or list of discussion topics for the Commission when you're having discussions with new property owners in the historic overlay district. We are also working on a calendar of activities that's been suggested and talked about a couple times by the Commission as a way of kind of tracking those activities that the Commission would engage in on an annual basis to further the cause of historic preservation. Things likely along the lines of, everything that we have to do related to the Tallman Arts Festival and our participation in that annual event. Things related to Historic Preservation Month in May. Things related to our local Historic Preservation Award program, as well as the multiple state Historic Preservation Award programs and the various deadlines associated with that. Consideration of certified local government CLG program grants, also administered by the state of Wisconsin, but that of course has its own due dates throughout the year. I think typically in the spring you have to submit a letter of intent, or I believe they call it a letter of intent to submit a complete and formal application later in the year, when there's intent to apply for one of those grants. So it'll be things along those lines, and certainly there'll be opportunity for the Commission to add or subtract things that you want to do on an annual basis.
Good. Couple of things that, is it possible to have, because we've talked about the calendar backing up from Historic Preservation Month, and really at our next meeting, being able to look at a calendar for when the information is going to be sent out to the public, So I don't want to wait until December or January to do that. I'd rather get ahead of it so that we're looking at when we want to have, because this last year was a bit more truncated in the timeline that we had, that we wanted to move forward with all of this and making sure that there was plenty of press to go along with that as well. So I just want to make sure that if we can get a calendar so that we can, May is when we're going to do it, how long do we want, how long is it going to take, where, who's responsible and all of that, just working backwards with that. I also had a meeting with one of the directors at the Rock County Historic Society, and they have assured me that they are very interested in wanting to put together programs that they can have on their campus with us in mind. And, for example, like bringing in, having a session on the tax credit, for anybody who is interested in that, creating sort of like these series of meetings that we, as the Historic Commission, would be a part of, obviously. Also trying to figure out when it would be best to do maybe a workshop on glazing windows, or how, I know that Jim has mentioned a number of things that we could do for our constituents that live, especially in the overlay district, helping them just develop some skills. I want to do this in my house. What is the best approach to do this? So, as I was really glad that when my meeting went very well, that they would like to be able to join us in whatever capacity that they can. So, any other comments on outreach?
So my only comment would be, I believe we had one new property owner in the overlay, and we intended to go meet them. I believe that was Kristen Armstrong, was the new property owner, so
Oh,
she beat
okay.
us to the punch. So whatever outreach we ought to probably do so on a pretty accelerated timeline, because
Yes.
it's probably not uncommon for people to move into houses and then immediately do some sort of project work.
Right.
That would require our
Yeah,
input.
okay. Good. Any other comments? Okay, moving on to item number 7, Historic Commission announcements. Remember that announcements are limited to member activities, memorials, and non-political community events. Discussion of matters related to governmental business is prohibited. Do we have any announcements? Yes,
Just
Brian.
one item for me. Wanted to note the passing of a former Historic Commission member, Dan Atwood. Dan passed away a few weeks ago now. He joined the commission in January of 2004 and served through May of 2011. He was a Courthouse Hill resident, lived in a home on South Division Street, a Queen Anne-style home. He had a teaching background. He was a retired English professor. And I did not have the opportunity to work with Dan myself, but we have other staff in the office who did know him from his time with the commission, and they commented on his interest and devotion to the Historic Commission and the cause of preservation. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, if there are no other announcements, our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, right here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, 5:28. Thank you.